because sometimes these business stories become a little bit too numerical. But when something ties somebody to an iconic figure like Milken, who has, in all fairness, cleaned up his act as a human being, and everybody knows that, but I think they all know that. Howard's looking at me.
No,
but we don't know the whole story on anybody. But here it is, a guy who's identified with a guy who's on his road to prison and who clearly was a risk for his reputation. Why would Mitt Romney get into bed business-wise with Milken if he wanted to ever be president?
Why did he go into business with him? This was going to be Bain's biggest deal yet. This Stage Stores retailer down in Houston, and Bain was able to put down $10 million and put together financing, $300 million they were able to get with Drexel in order to get this big deal done.
So they got $300 million leveraged by a $10 million ante. But wasn't there, anytime you make money like that or see you're going to make money, isn't there a risk to your reputation that comes with it? That's why you get all the big payoff. It's what you usually call a junk bond. But your thoughts?
There is a risk to it. And, you know, Romney had been historically a very cautious guy. That was really his role at Bain since he started it in 1984, was to be very careful with the firm's money and investors' money. And this was a big departure. This was really saying, OK, in venture capital, you take a lot of risk with startups and you make a little bit of money. But with this type of deal, with a leveraged buyout, you could make a lot of money.
Okay, let's get to why he would go for the big kill. Here's how a former employee involved with the Romney-Milken deal describes Mitt's rationale, his motive for getting in bed with the junk bond king. I love this quote. Mitt, I think, spent his life balanced between fear and greed. He knew that he had to make a lot of money to launch his political career. It's very hard to make a lot of money without taking some kind of reputational risk along the way. It's just hard to do. It doesn't mean you have to do anything illegal or immoral, but you often have to take reputational risk to make money. And the Boston Globe reports, so it was that Romney decided to rely on a man and a company in the thick of one of the most intensive investigations ever undertaken by the SEC. Howard, that is one of the great bites I've ever come across, a guy who just gives you just what you want to hear. Why would you take a big risk? Because he was going for the big kill, the American presidency. And he knew he wanted to have a ton. He said it before. My father taught me to make a lot of money before you run for office.
Yes, having studied Mitt Romney's career, I think that's absolutely right. I think you can make some money by nurturing the young companies. You can make the big killing on predation, which he was moving from.
Remember in Bonfire of Vanities, you make money through crumbs?
Yeah.
He's not interested in crumbs.
No, he didn't want the crumbs. He wanted the big scores, and he wanted the money from Drexel to help him do it. And I think it's utterly consistent with what Mitt Romney's lifelong game plan was. And he was willing to take the risks because of the big payoff. He wanted the big money, but he wanted the big money for an ultimate reason, which is to do what his dad couldn't do, which is to become president.
Beth Healy, back to you again. In terms of Bain, what makes this a story that just keeps giving? It was your paper broke that story today. Congratulations for the Globe, of course. Thanks. And I mean that. And, of course, the Times is on this story. The Post was on it. The president paid tribute to that, in fact, on Friday. Why do you think Bain has circled back into news inquiry? Why are we back into this story again now after a couple of weeks of not doing it?
Because it seems like when you want to evaluate Mitt Romney, and since he is presenting himself as the president who can fix the economy, the would-be president who could fix the economy, this is the period of his life on which you can really judge what he brought to the table with business. And so there were about 100 deals. We evaluated them at length for the Globe's book, The Real Romney. And this deal is important because it shows that he really did pivot to be willing to take on more risk in order to make a lot of money for investors.
Well, let's take a look at this, then how I react. Here's a